For the love, the rush, the buzz, the rush. Whatever tunes your knees to mush, the hit, the lift. Even if you gotta sift through the shit to get to the twist. The smile I high like it's your very last line. You'll never get another try. Do it loud. Do it for the loud. For the here and now.
Uh, Man, thank you so much for reaching out to me. Okay, Dan reached out to me about a month ago. It was prior to me actually going up to that area, and I hadn't been up to that area for a couple of years. So it was just kind of coincidental that he reached out about something that happened not too far from where I ended up going. So that's why I thought this interview would do well to kind of segue into the the 10 days I spent up on the Kettle Range area there north of Colville. And there's some components that, man, you are not going to believe how many knocks we captured on audio. And one of them was
Mm,
like a thunder knock,
mhm,
and just, I mean, knocks galore.
mhm.
And so, since that's a component of part of your story, I thought, man, what a great segue of your encounter over there in the Idaho Panhandle.
But he had said back and he got a whiff of something just horrible. His horse started shying really bad. And he said, it's an experienced horse. That's not normal. And then a huge black figure walked out on two legs about 50 yards in front of him in the tree out of the tree line. His horse, he said, was trying to throw him. And he said he took a look at it and left and never went back. And he was telling me this story in his 60s, and he was in his early 30s when that happened. But he still lived in on the edge of the Frank Church. He just wouldn't ever hunt back there again.
Well, so if
But
everyone wants to know, the Frank Church area encompasses, I think, like 2.3 million acres, and
mhm,
it's at
that's spot on. Yeah.
it's in the central part of Idaho, below the Chalice or the Salmon area. What two areas are? Is
Salmon
it a
chalice. Hmm.
Okay, the Salmon Chalice area, but a huge, huge portion of land
Hmm.
with
Hmm.
basically nobody living in there. So that's where a
No, I
gentleman,
mean, no, it's
yeah. So that's where your friend had his encounter that kind of spooked him pretty badly. Didn't you say he even
mhm, mhm.
he was kind of choked up telling you about it?
Yeah, I mean, just the look on his face, we were just sitting in the cab of the truck. Yeah, his eye was twitching. You could just see his eyes watering up, his lip twitching. He was a big, tough country guy, That's I was just watching him going, oh, this isn't. He goes, this was not a bear. He goes, I've hunted bear. I've hunted bear off that horse. This was not a bear. He goes, but they're just not that big anyways around here. And they don't walk around on two legs, and my horse isn't afraid of bear. So it was just the whole thing. And then that was it.
There.
Mhm.
So where were you at in relation to St. Joe?
So the St. Joe, yeah, that's the national forest. I was south of Avery. It's a town of like nine on the highway that runs east west through there.
Yeah.
So if you can find Avery,
There's Avery right there.
yeah, that was just about 6 miles due south of Avery, maybe a little southwest, south by southwest, just up on a ridge.
All right, we don't have to be exact, but so it'd be somewhere down in
Yeah,
here,
yeah.
just so that people can get an eyeball of the area. So tell us about that day when you were out with your dad.
Yeah, so that we normally hunt the Frank Church, but since I moved to Washington, it's just harder to get tags in that area, and just the time and money. We spend at least 2 weeks back there, and that's a big time and money commitment since I'm a non-resident now. But anyways, my dad said, "Hey, you're closer to the Panhandle. Maybe we should jump over there." So we did. We got our tags in the St. Joe. He got up there on the Wednesday the week before opening day to start scouting. I had to work. I'd started a new position, so I left that Saturday to meet him up there. And so this happened. We'd been up there Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Tuesday was October 11th, 2021. That's when this happened. It was pretty nasty weather. The first day, opening day, sleet started coming down at about 6 a.m. and didn't stop till about 6 p.m. And then it was snow. It was dropping down into the teens already. We were high up enough that it was just brutal cold. But ironically, that day, the 11th, bright, sunny, beautiful day. I think the high temp was 35, but it was clear blue sky. So my dad and I, we don't hunt as a team together. We just go out together, establish base camp, and then split up. So he went east on the ridge we were on. I went west. I kind of hit a dead end with some ravines and cliffs. So I had turned back around, come east to our camp. I just grabbed some lunch, and then I decided, well, it's about noon. There's a bit more daylight, so I hadn't gone southeast of our camp, southeast down the ridge. I had been on the southwest side the first 2 days. So I thought, okay, I'll just kind of move over a little bit. I knew my dad was due east, so we probably wouldn't run into each other. And I just started off moving just downhill. You can tell from the map, maybe. This is steep country, heavily timbered, not what I'm used to. I mean, I was joking with my dad, I could punch an elk or a deer before I had time to shoot them. That timber was so tight. Hadn't seen any game trail, any sign of game other than a couple mule deer that one sleet day. They had walked in close to me. So I'm just going downhill, south, just looking for anything. And to my shock, I hit a game trail, and it was a well-traveled game trail. And this game trail was heading about east by northeast back up this slope. And when I hit this game trail, another surprise. For the first time in 3 days, I could see an opening down the slope. So the tree cover was broken a little bit, and there were these grassy steps. So it slope, flat part, the first time I'd seen flat ground other than the ridge top in days, and grass, open grass. And that kept going down in these steps down to this lower area. So I could see quite a ways downhill. I estimated, I could have been wrong, couple hundred yards, maybe even out to 250. But it was about 1 o'clock. So I said to myself, the sun's going to start going down in a few hours, and I'm not going to hike up this whole mountain in the dark. It's grizzly bear country. I just don't need to be messing around with any of that. So I made the decision, I'm going to head northeast on this game trail. I hadn't seen a game trail yet. I'm going to follow it. It'll get me back up to the ridge eventually. That's good. So I turn and start walking, and then from down the slope, right down through that open area, I hear 5 rhythmic, and I don't call them knocks. If I could spell the sound out, it's T-H-O-K, thok. Just this deep, meaty thok. And they're rhythmic, not rapid, just thok, thok, like that. 5 in a row. And I turned and looked down the slope, and I remember joking in my head, what is someone doing down there beating on a tree? And then I just was like, okay, well, not only is no one's down there, there's no roads on the other side of this ridge. It's just wilderness. the ridges behind me, and that road goes north by northeast away from us. It's been snowing. There's no tracks in. Just the time I'd spent walking this mountainside was horrible. I mean, it's just brutal. So I'm just going, okay, well, I don't know what that is. That's weird. It's definitely down the slope. I mean, there was no wind, total still day. So I could really not precisely, but tell where that sound was coming from. And I'm like, oh, I don't know what to think of that, but I don't have time to look. So I turn and I start walking back up the game trail, and then two more. Fuck, fuck. Exact same location. And now I'm like, okay, well, I'm bored. I haven't seen any game. What's a couple more hours going downhill? Plus, there's grass. There's an open area. If I was an elk, I would be grazing down there. So I started carefully downhill. Hit the first bench or step, I'll call it. There's snow from the previous nights, so I'm walking very carefully. I'm trying not to crunch in the snow, even though I don't think there's any game down there. But I did see some old elk spoor, so it was encouraging. I'm like, okay, I'll come back here tomorrow. And I was inspecting that area, probably 5 minutes had gone by, and I'm like, this is a good spot to come back tomorrow. Whatever that noise was, who cares? I'm going to come back here at maybe before the break of dawn, sneak down here and wait. And so then I was starting to go back up the hill, and then fuck, another one comes. And the same thing, I'm like, okay, now I have to figure out what this is. So I just still go into stock mode. I'm being very careful, toe to heel, just moving. So I'm trying to get a visual down the hill more since the trees start breaking up. Like, what is doing this down there? Could this be a person? But it sounds like someone taking like a log and hitting another log. It doesn't, you can tell the sound of a hatchet or an axe or a small, thin, dry stick. This was a deep, just meaty hit. Now I just kind of, I don't know. So I keep going. I proceed down to the second step. And in the meantime, I'm walking to the point where I'm trying not to make any sound perceivable to my ears, because what I'm also listening for is there a breeze below, and are trees or branches hitting each other? I'm starting to think, okay, is there movement down slope that I'm not seeing up here that's trees rubbing, hitting, kind of the logical thing. And it's just dead still. I mean, not even a blade of grass. There'd be an occasional light breeze, not even, a couple miles an hour. So I'm going, okay, this isn't that nothing's moving. Okay. And I'm listening and just looking, and minutes go by. And I just, same thing again. I'm like, I don't know what this is, but I need to head back up slope. I'm a ways down. And I'm thinking again about turning back, and then whack again. So rinse and repeat. Here we go. So now I've gotten off the steps, and I'm moving down to where it's actually a level area that opens up into a grassy clearing. That's where I think these sounds are coming from, an outgrowth of young tree from the old growth forest. So they kind of projected out in almost a kind of a half of a square or a V. And there was this open grassy area, and that's what I could see from up above. That was the opening where there wasn't trees. And so after that last hit, I'm like, okay, it is somewhere behind those trees, that copse of trees that's grown out. They're young, they're different heights, from 6 foot to probably 12, 14. But they'd all grown out really thick and, staggered. So there was no view through them. And I could tell that from above. So I'm like, okay, I got to get level and get closer, because whatever is making this noise is back in those trees. And hey, in for a penny, in for a pound, right? And so I'm getting down to this more level grade, And off to my right, there's almost, I just call it a half pipe. It was a very smooth looking, almost like little gulch, but it was very smooth, just like a half pipe that came down the slope. And that was between me and the grass clearing. And so there's still some trees there. So I'm using them as cover the whole time, just keeping my rifle at low ready. It's tucked into my shoulder, not pointed, of course, looking. And I'm just going, please, whatever you are, just show yourself so I can get on with my day, and be like, oh, it's a moose or something doing something weird. And nothing, no more sounds. But I'm like, okay, it definitely, I'm at this point 90-some% sure it's back there. And so I get level, and the last tree is off to my right. That when I move around that, I'm fully in full sight of this open grassy area in that tree line. And I'm like, okay, well, I can't see anything yet. And I stop just kind of behind that tree, and I'm looking and I'm looking. And I'm like, okay, well, once I step out from behind this tree, because I'm thinking I'm hiding from whatever's back there. As soon as I take a deep breath and go, okay, I'm going to step out into the open. Now I'm visible to whatever that is. About five, I think. I just call them machine gun knocks, except it was the same deep, thick, meaty hits, but it was like a Browning 50 cal, just boom, 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 but right in front of me from behind those trees. And that just, all the hair went up on my skin, and I'm just like, what is going on here? I mean, because this wasn't like knock, 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 knock. It was those same meaty, thick knocks, but like a machine gun fire. And they were right in front of me behind that tree line, about, at this point, maybe 30 yards, a little bit under. And I'm just like, I don't know if I should be here. I don't know what can do that, because this whole time I've been thinking, what animal do I know that I've encountered? I've pretty much all of them could be making this sound. And if this is a person doing this and they've gone to this extent because at this point I'm like, this almost sounds like a warning. But I'm an idiot. So I took a deep breath and said, okay, well, like I said, in for a penny, in for a pound. I've come this far. I want to see what this is doing this. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to step out, and then I'm going to start pivoting around this tree line, around the tip of the V, so I can keep an angle on it. And if it is an animal and it's angry, I can get my rifle up and, put rounds on it before hopefully it gets me. But at this point, I wasn't thinking it was something aggressive or messing with me at this point. I just didn't know what to think, but I wanted to know. So deep breath. I tuck my rifle in, and I'm not pointing it at the trees because I don't have whatever. Well, I know what it is now, but it was like a bomb going off, a bomb of wood, because this thing was, all I can describe it as is just aggression and violence it came out of that. It just smashed. I don't know if it snapped a tree in half like a tree, a live grown tree, or if it took a full-size log and just smashed it into a tree, because the violence and the sound was ungodly. And I'm not really a jumpy person, but I staggered backwards in just pure shock. I stumbled, and right after that huge knock, this is how my story went to every human being, including the woman I loved for a year. After that knock, there was a film reel cut out of my head, and the next thing my brain came online, I was in the middle of that clearing with my gun up. That huge thunderous just smash, I stagger back, and for just a split second I look down at my feet because they got caught in a stick or something. I mean, just a sec, and I look up, and I can see it from this far up, if you can see me, about lower pecs up. And I only looked at it for maybe 2, 3 Mississippis, because I wasn't going to keep looking at it. I got off the X after that, and that's where I told people my brain came back online, and I was in the middle of that clearing, rifle up, backing away, trying to keep that reticle steady, just trying with every single thing in me not to run. I know not to do that, but my everything's screaming at me. And here's what I told Miguel, and this is funny because I told my wife this, and she almost got me once. She said, "What did you see?" Because the whole time in my head, other than that urge to scream and just run, or the logical voice saying, "Don't turn your back on this thing," was this other. It was like a little kid in the corner huddled up, just going, this gun's not going to be enough. You're not going to be able to stop it before it gets you. It's not enough," which is, I'll explain that more too. It was a 308. I had a 10-round mag in the weapon and a 10-round mag on my belt. But I mean, stop it, not necessarily kill it, stop it before it could get me. There's a difference between stopping an animal before it gets you and just killing it, right? Like a kill shot when you're hunting. But when I looked up and it was just that chest and shoulders and head, yeah, the fear. To this day, if there wasn't the word Sasquatch or Bigfoot, I would just have said monster or giant. I wouldn't. Till to this day, I don't. The word Sasquatch. I grew up. I watched Harry and the Hendersons. The Patterson Gimlin film. Those were my relationships with Sasquatch. All the little cool little, cartoonish stickers and stuff. This wasn't like that at all. Yeah, what gets me more than anything was the size. Like I said, Harry and the Henderson, Harry could have hid behind this thing, probably two of them. I had a good estimate of the tree height because I was level, and if that thing was under 10, which I don't think it was over, it wasn't much. I would accept 9.5 because I could see, Christmas tree house height trees, that were mostly interlayered in there. So 8 foot, roughly 7 foot, and they were coming up to its lower chest and just the shoulder width. I mean, I literally compared it to my tailgate or the hood of my truck, and I have a 3/4 ton pickup. It was, and I'm not trying to exaggerate. I made, I went out and set sticks out at different heights. I know a stick's not a good, but just to measure the height amongst trees, I knew it was about 25 yards, just maybe a little bit less than its distance to me. And to the best of I was like, that it looks close to 10. I mean, from where I was, unless it was standing on, a little bit of raised ground or something, maybe, but not much. And just thick. I mean, just all I could compare it to is like being up close to like a Cape buffalo or something, just in the thickness of it. It just was a wall of meat and bone, you could tell. Completely covered, all hair, beard. Its beard it had a full mustache beard, and its hairline came up to its orbit. So the only thing I could really see, and once again, I didn't stare at its face. It was just this look at it for about maybe tops 3 seconds of just staring right at it. Its skin was jet black. All I could see was a strip of its nose, and didn't look really broad or anything. But I'm not trying to make guesstimates on that brief look. And then just black, hairline came down pretty low, but it was kind of like looking. I told someone like looking at a Spartan helmet where you've got the eye sockets and then that blade of black down the middle, and then just full beard down. And I mean, he was pissed. I mean, the posture was like a guy in a bar, looking down, his chin tucked and his chest poofed out, just staring right down at me. And so on features, I'm not going to even try to guess on that. I'll tell you a little bit more an interesting story about the feature thing though. But the fur or hair, I would just describe this hair looked very uniform, didn't look very long. It looked very dense and uniform. I couldn't really tell length, but not super long and shaggy at all. It was very uniform. The predominant color, I would say, was gray, but a darker gray. But what's trippy is just in that glimpse, it's just like I told people, like when you look at a tree, as kids, we draw a tree trunk is like brown and then everything else is green. Well, if you look at a lot of older pine trees, especially up in those areas, there's a lot of gray, and then some browns and maybe some darkness mixed in. That was where that hair color was trending, with mostly the gray hues that were intermingled and then some of that brown. And the reason I could see it though like that was because it's standing right amongst these beautiful young, very green pine trees. And so the contrast was quite a bit. So it wasn't like it was standing amongst a bunch of grayish ponderosa. It was in very stark contrast. So I'm sure it knew that and it wanted me to see it at that point. I think that last hit, I think the 5 rapid knocks were a warning. And then that last one was like, okay, you didn't get this. Yeah, that was shocking in and of itself. And I could tell how something that size could generate enough force to make that final sound. I just can't fathom what that thing could do. I mean, something that big, that's what broke me. I mean, just seeing it, because that's not what you're supposed to see. And just it was just preposterous. Is something like that standing in front of me? And I told people the story because it's like once a year around hunting season, I start thinking about this, and I don't know who to talk to. But yeah, I don't know. So that thing hits, I see it, I get off the X. It's here. I'm going around to the other side of the V with my gun up, backing up. And at some point, maybe it was to satisfy the urge, that primal urge to run, but it was also a part of me's going, if this thing comes out of those trees, I need to be able to put enough rounds on it to hopefully slow it down and stop it so I can reload, grab my pistol, something. So I made this decision as I'm backing up, my heels are catching and I'm almost tripping anyway. So I said, okay, here's what I'm going to do. And I'm still backing up. I'm going to pivot and I'm going to make 3 lunges, just 3, boom, 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 pivot back. I need to gain distance because if it comes out of there, I saw the size of it. I'm like, I'm just going to have to crank as many rounds as I can into it. And hopefully it'll reload if it slows down. And so I did that. Pivot, lunge, 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 pivot. And then I hit the mountainside, which was like that. And this is where I just almost lost it. But I made a commitment to myself. I said, okay, every double that distance, you're going to pivot. And I just went like hell up that mountain, pivoting every 10, 12 feet, pivot, run, pivot. Well, run. I mean, I got my bag on, that big pig of a rifle, weighs like 9, 10 pounds loaded. But I just kept going. I mean, I train for that year round. When I've got a hunt coming, I train like that year round. And I just kept going and going, pivot. And every time, man, I pivoted, I just expected to see that thing right on my ass. And I just kept going. In about half an hour, I looked at my watch. I see this flat spot in front of my eyes, and it's the road. I had no clue when I was going to hit the road. I had no clue if I'd ever make it to the road, but I saw that road and I just put it in afterburner and just lunged across the road, hit the opposite bank, pivoted my rifle between my legs, and just sat there in shock, just staring, expecting this head to, come up over the bank. But it didn't. And part of me goes, it didn't follow you, obviously. And I was in so much shock. I mean, I was less than a quarter mile from our camp. I had no idea which direction to go. I was so stunned. I mean, all sense of anything was gone. And I looked down and I saw my dad's boot prints from the night before in the snow heading back to camp, not from today. And I was like, okay, I'll follow his prints back. And I don't remember walking back to camp other than as soon as I got in the truck, I had actually left my 454 Casull revolver that day. I don't know why. I mean, no bear high up on the mountain. I just grabbed that gun and I just lost it. I lost it for probably like 2, 3 hours. I just sat there. I I was in shock. I mean, I was shaking so hard I couldn't start my truck. I was just trying to get the heat on. I had cold weather gear on too. And the only thing going through my brain was I just got led into an ambush. And because I think going back to camp, my brain was processing those knocks, they started when I was walking off, and they only came again when I had paused and was considering turning around and had been waffling on my decision. It wasn't until the end, the rapid fire knock and the huge one, that it was a little bit more apparent what was going on. But in my brain, I was led down there by those knocks because my curiosity kills the cat. Because at all those points that those singular knocks had happened, none of them happened while I was moving. I'm confident of that. It was dead still, no wind. I was walking excruciatingly slow. I mean, it took me almost an hour to walk that 200, maybe 250 meters down, because I was just like, what the heck is this? I don't want to spook it. I want to see it first. And so fast forward, my dad gets back at camp, after dark. I didn't say a word to him. To this day, I apologize to him. Because I'm like, that's out there. But I kept on the hunt for a week. A part of me rationalized it didn't follow you. This wasn't personal. You just happened to be the one walking by. So just stay out of those bottoms. Don't go down that slope. Stay on the ridges. And then we eventually, the following few days, had dropped down in the low country where there was much more game anyways. So we just came back to that ridge to our base camp. So I stayed there. But the next day, I remember walking, I was 25 yards from camp, and it's shameful, at least to me. But I was like, I'm just going to walk out of sight of camp until my dad's gone. I'm going to go sit in my truck for the next week. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to sit in that truck until he gets back and just pretend I'm hunting. And then I'm never, ever coming back to any wilderness ever again. Yeah, I'm done. I'm just done. But I kept going out, and a squirrel or a deer would jump, and I would just be walking, and tears would be running down my face, and I didn't even know it. I've been in the medical field for 21 years now, over half of that working in psych. I didn't realize how detrimental what my brain had done and what I had done, but I couldn't say it out loud. Everything but the sight of it, because, probably a couple percentage was that fear of ridicule, but I had told like my siblings the story. And everybody's like, whoa, then it was just a cool, spooky story, right? Like, you may have seen Sasquatch, you may have been this. And I was like, yeah. And it was like, oh, for a while there, I thought, yeah, that was kind of cool, because I had completely shut out that 2 to 3 seconds. Because I mean, I didn't know. You hear things like dissociative disorder and, people that go through such horrible things that it's just, I didn't think that would happen to me, like to that point. But it was this like an infection just boiling under in my brain. And to me, though, if I popped that, then I would lose it. Then I'm officially just my reality is going to completely shatter. And so for a while there, when the nights were bad, I managed it poorly with alcohol. Until my lady got sick of that and was like, look, she said, I believe you. I know can't fathom what you're going for, but you need to talk to somebody. And yeah, through a lot of therapy and eventually someone who was a combat vet that kind of knew what it was to be scared, and he'd been blown up, that I told him, and he told me, write the whole story down in excruciating detail. Don't leave a single thing out, not a detail. And then I want you to burn that story. Well, last September of 2024, I went back to that exact spot. I camped in the exact same spot and I burnt that story. And I went by myself, ostensibly to go bear hunting for a week. But I needed some closure, and I even tried to go down that slope to find the spot. This sounds nuts, but I kept hunting because a part of me kept saying, okay, even if this was an attempted ambush, it was luring you in like you thought. It got a different idea once you got close, and I think I know why now. And it let you go. If it didn't want to let you go, you wouldn't be talking about this right now. So I go armed a lot different now, though, not because I want anything to do with them. I don't want to see one. I don't want anything to do with them. I don't ever want to hurt one or them hurt me. So, but I am not going to come up short again. I'm not going to ever go in my brain, I don't got enough gun. So it has changed that aspect, but I still go out by myself for a week, more at a time. That's not smart in general, just to anybody. So don't follow that lead, but that's what I like doing. That's what I've always done. It's what my dad does, and we're solo hunters.
Well, if any of the listeners here go back to, you got to understand the component of his story that was the most traumatizing in retrospect, when you're laying at night thinking about it, is the what ifs. And the what ifs are, this thing had its eye on him because it was consciously doing knocks in a way that it was only doing a knock when it saw that you were searching for him. And then the moment that you looked like you were turning away, he would do another knock so that you would keep searching for him to find where that knock. That's the part that's probably the hardest to live with. What exactly was he doing, because it was intelligent design, intelligent thought to almost lure you to a specific location. And that is really a freaky thing to have to come to terms with.
So can I ask you that? What do you think was going on? Because I remember I remember the time. I looked at my watch. This started at 1,300 hours. It was about 1350 when I got even with that tree line. And so it was about 1 o'clock, 1400, when I saw it and started boogieing up that mountain. It was 1:30 or 2:30 when I hit the road. And I remember the sequence of those knocks and how they occurred. If it happened once or even twice, coincidence, the whole sequence they only continued when I was like, okay, I don't have time for this, I'm leaving. And I was moving to turn around every single time, other than the initial ones, because those were the 5 that attracted my attention. What do you think?
Well, I think your assessment is, from what it sounds like, I think your assessment sounds pretty good, as scary as that is. Most of the knocking incidents that I've ever been involved with, and I've been at this for a long time now, since my 2003 and since my encounter in 2005. So I've heard a lot of knocks. I've heard whistles, rock clacks, and things like that. Up until this moment, I was always of the belief that whenever I would hear a knock, It had nothing to do with me. They were never doing a knock for me to understand what it is, since that's their way to communicate with each other. I always thought that when I heard knocks and rock clacks, that they were talking to each other, positioning each other, and locating each other. But this is the first time it's told in a way that it really involved what you were, because they would change the knock according to what you were doing in your movements. That this is the first time I may believe that it was a knock that he was using for you to hear rather than talking to another Sasquatch.
Yeah, and there was I zeroed in on the direction of those sounds from the get-go, and it never changed. It was from, I mean, you could just tell it was so clear, and with that opening. Yeah, that was my hypothesis. I'm alone. And here's the thing, my rifle is just as camouflaged as I am. And this was the only part of me you could tell was human. No blaze orange. I know people have a problem with that, but I don't think it saw my weapon until I got close. I think it saw it when it let off those five. Because when I came out and started moving, my rifle pivoted from down here, which is in line with my body, totally blended into this low ready. And I think it saw that and was like, oh, nope, not worth it. That would be a predator's logic. Oh, he's got one of those things. And then I decided to keep going. And it's like, what part of this don't you understand, buddy? Kaboom. And then, yeah, I'll show you. Obviously wasn't too afraid of the rifle enough or it knew what, maybe it's done that to people before. I don't know. Maybe it's never seen a person. I doubt that, but
Man alive.
and I've heard some people, why didn't you just shoot it? If I would just shot that right in the head, it's like, no, you wouldn't. I don't care. No,
Yeah.
no, you wouldn't.
I often get tired of people's responses when they have no idea what they.
And it's, I got asked, like, well, everybody says, well, does it look more like an ape or a human? I'm like, neither. It didn't look like a gorilla at all. It didn't look like a human, other than the vaguely anthropomorphic shape, of on two legs. Well, I couldn't see its legs, but appeared to be standing on two legs, shoulders like a person, head generally like a person. It didn't seem cone shaped, or it looked like a normal human head. Other than enormous, but just the size, I'm like, good luck. Yeah, maybe you get a lucky shot between the eyes, but I'm just thinking of going center mass on that thing. I'm sure
Its chest plate was probably
maybe
2 inches thick.
That's the thing. I don't know how they're configured. And also, it's like, you don't shoot something that's not directly attacking you and you don't know what it is. That's just that gun safety 101, hunter safety. You just don't shoot something because it scared you. Now, if he was moving when I looked up from stumbling, I just would have just started shooting, of course, at that point. But yeah, I don't, that's what, yeah, it's not just the fear of seeing something like that, but I don't go out in the woods. I mean, yeah, I guess I'm fit. I'm not the biggest, strongest guy or toughest guy or whatever, but I mean, I'm fairly confident in the woods and fit. But after that, I mean, it took my self, I guess, confidence, whatever you want to call that, down to zero. Zero. I would have daytime panic attacks, and I'm living in a small city. It just blanket fear. I've never experienced anything like that. And it would just happen broad daylight, nighttime. I just felt weak and small and like prey. That's all I felt like to that thing at that point. Was I was a mouse and it was a tiger. And that's it. And there was nothing I could do about it, even with that gun. And
Well,
I know someone.
Coincidentally, that same area, the Chalice Salmon River area, I did a video from a church friend that I was best friends with when I was a child. And later in life, he got a hold of me and saw all my Bigfoot stuff and said my mom had an encounter up in the Chalice, Idaho area. So I
Mhm.
talked to her and got her story. And you're talking about an intelligence that she also spoke of, and that is she's sitting with her back at the edge of the woods while Brian and his dad was fishing in a stream or a river. I think it was the Salmon River. And they were moving upriver, and she just heard a noise, a slight noise behind her. And she turned and looked through some bushes there right beside her. And there was this thing that had eased up on her and parted the bushes and was looking at her, looked like a half man, half gorilla. But the point is, it quietly eased up on her to where it was so close that if it had nefarious ideas, she would be a missing 411 story and you'd never hear from it again. But she just caught it in the brief moment that she saw it and took off running. And it was already right there next, close to her within 3 or 4 feet. So that's not an isolated behavior. You're describing another, of course, it's a whole different scenario, but still an intelligently thought out predator type behavior.
My thing is, I think I told you when we talked, I don't have any opinions on what they are. I'm not really that, if someone finds out and it's this or that, cool, but I've withheld all, I don't know how to, I still don't know how to process it. There's that side of me that's like, yeah, I grew up hunting in the Frank Church. I can see how you can go out there and never see a human, never, not a sign of humanity, true wilderness. You can get back there and you cannot be found if you don't want to. But then there's the same time after you see something like that, it's like, God, you think we'd find something definitive. Everybody I think goes through that. But then the other part of me that's, people go down other roads and I just don't know what to think of them. And I just don't pursue those other, the other stuff. Like, are they biblical? And I
Right.
maybe, I don't know. I'm just like that I have literally no opinion on. I'm a very science-based person. I work in the medical field. That's, um, so I'm just like, well, I have this sample for me, and that's all I can go on. I listen to other people's stories much more now. It's kind of like my therapy more than anything.
Sure.
But I just I don't know. I don't know what to think of it
Yeah,
or
I mean,
how to.
there's so many people that you can make so many rabbit holes trying to come up with ideas that are so far out there. I don't go that route either because I don't need to. There's a component with these creatures that whatever they are, whatever they fall in line of the evolutionary chain of events throughout the history and the eons of time where they came in and have evolved alongside of us. The part that separates them from all the other animals that we know of is the intelligence part. So that's like, Rambo, the movie Rambo. If he wanted to hide in the woods and take people off one at a time as they were coming in after him, he did that very easily because he had the skill sets and the intelligence. But for me, it's not only their skill set and their size and their athleticism and their muscular and all the things that they do, it's the intelligence part that we will not understand until one gets autopsied. But the intelligence is the scariest part also. So, so yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, that wasn't just some dumb animal doing that, obviously. And I could see, like I said, yeah, I've been in areas where I'm like, I could just disappear out here. This will be good. I don't want to go back to work. I'm just going to live out here, and I
Right.
can choose whether someone finds me. I mean, that is legitimate. I could see though, like that one, if it was standing amongst all those pine and it was still, you would just your eye would move right past it. Um, even with the size because of the coloration, and that I've heard people speculate about they can change that coloration. I don't know, but yeah, with that capabilities, just physically they must have with, like you said, size, strength, durability. intelligence. Yeah, it's like, and just not a huge population, but it's just still just to spend. I know everybody. This is why most people. I was a skeptic. I've spent so much time in these areas that are perfect for these things to live and thrive. Why have I not seen one? Why have I never seen a track? Why have I never heard a knock or a howl or whatever they do? Now I'm like, oh, I probably did hear some stuff, or there probably was some stuff that I could pick out that was very sketchy. That was like, huh, what is doing that? Um, Hard to say.
Yeah. Well, man, I could tell that there were components of your storyline that you were still struggling with. Man, I appreciate that. I appreciate that about you stepping forward. There's a lot of people who will get solace from what you've said and described because they themselves are going through some of the same stuff with with things that they've seen and encountered. And that part I appreciate you reaching out to me first. I had no idea who you were. I thank you so much for reaching out to me. Is there anything that I can do for you? Is there do you have any questions for me? I can't give you any answers. I'm just as confused about this as you are, but you're right. Talking about it in a healthy way where you can just kind of get it out every once in a while, just get it out and chit chat about it. That's always nice to do. It always relieves a lot of pressure on me to be able to discuss, what happened to me in just a way that you can just release it every now and again and then just come back to normal,
Mm-hmm.
and it slowly builds up and slowly builds up, and then you keep releasing it and keep releasing it till you're
Mm-hmm.
comfortable with it.
Yeah, that's all. I appreciate your time. Yeah, I would just say to people, if no matter how hard it is to pull that band-aid off, it is better to do that than to let it fester because it just not good. And this is from someone in the medical field with psych experience as a clinician. So it's like, yeah, yeah, I should know better, right?
Right.
When you're that deep into something like that, when it's just completely changed your perception of what is just going on, just yeah, that's why I'm so glad there's people like you that people can just because you need to, and don't be like me in the beginning and just keep it in and create this narrative because I mean I'm not trying to come on here to make money. I have zero social media. I don't want people to know who I am. I just want to
Right.
do my job and live life. But yeah, if there's an opportunity that it gets you through it without resulting to substance abuse, or I've heard of suicide, this can mess you up when that
Yes.
it just
Yeah.
can. No
Well,
matter how tough you are.
when I was in the fire service, I'm retired now, but when I was in the fire service, we had plenty of things happen on a fire scene, deaths and mayhem and dismemberment and things like that. That where they have critical stress debriefing that's available to you, and therapy, free therapy sessions that's available to you as a firefighter for things that you need to get out. And I never needed that. I never needed critical stress debriefing at all. None of that ever phased me in the way that this has. That's amazing to me that
Mhm.
I didn't need it then when it involved people, but I have to get it out every once in a while when I'm dealing with this make believe monster that's in my head that I've seen out there. Isn't that crazy?
Mhm. Mhm.
Uh, all right, well, buddy,
Yeah.
I'm going to let you go after that, and I appreciate you. You've got my information, dude. If you ever need to reach out for whatever reason whatsoever, I'll lend you an ear. And I probably talk too much, but if you
No.
need to, I'll be here for you, buddy. And thank you so
No, I
much.
appreciate that. Thank you. Thank
All
you.
right. Well, I'm going to let you go then. Thank you.
Okay. Take care.
For the heat